Remember when our biggest daily stress was literally just choosing which crayon to use? Now we're out here trying to figure out taxes, rent, and why our knees crack at 21. Like, let's be entirely real for a second. We are low-key the most confused generation to ever exist. We transitioned from absolute childhood bliss straight into the everything is on fire era. Think back to the early days, before the internet completely hijacked our entire attention span. Outside was a literal movie, and a random stick we found on the ground was a high-tier weapon. But then, the tech flashbang happened, and we suddenly became the guinea pigs of the digital age. One minute we're playing tag, the next we're letting brain rot control our entire sleep schedule. Back then, every single milestone felt like a massive high-tier achievement. Fast forward to young adulthood, and suddenly we are getting humbled by the most basic daily tasks. We went from writing short stories about magical wizards in middle school English class to staring blankly at a resume trying to figure out how to make good at scrolling sound professional. It is high-key exhausting realizing that money doesn't just spawn in your wallet automatically anymore. Like, nobody warned us that grocery shopping would feel like a literal financial heist against ourselves. But even though we are collectively cooked, there is still a weird comfort in knowing we are all in this era together. No cap. We have absolutely no idea what we are doing, but at least the memes are top tier. Remember when we actually believed we'd grow up to be astronauts, rock stars, or professional video game testers? Now we're just praying our morning iced coffee kicks in before our social battery hits absolute zero. Like, when did the weekends start passing by in literally 2 seconds? Sunday night hits, and you realize you spent the entire weekend just recovering from the stress of the week. Making friends used to be so simple, you just ran up to someone in a playground and asked if they liked dinosaurs. Now, making new friends requires a 3-week scheduling debate just to get a single text back. We are stuck in this weird limbo where we still feel like kids, but society expects us to have a 5-year plan. Honestly, if survival means living on instant ramen and pure vibes, then we are absolutely clutching it. Let's talk about how the internet we grew up with felt like a completely different universe. We went from watching low-quality viral videos on a desktop to being bombarded by 10,000 targeted ads every single minute. It's living rent-free in my mind how our attention spans have been completely reduced to atomic atoms. If a video doesn't give us a dopamine hit in the first 2 seconds, we swipe away like our lives depend on it. There's this low-key heartbreak in realizing we will never experience that specific brand of childhood boredom again. The kind of boredom that actually forced your brain to use its imagination instead of just refreshing a feed. Now, anytime we have a single quiet moment, we feel this weird guilt like we should be working or side hustling. Who allowed us to become the adults in the room? Because I am definitely going to need a refund. Remember the pure, unadulterated hype of Saturday morning cartoons before streaming existed? Now we spend 45 minutes scrolling through choices just to end up rewatching the exact same comfort show for the 20th time. It's high-key wild how our sleep hygiene went completely out the window the second we got our own rooms. We trade our precious rest for extra screen time, then wonder why we look like actual zombies by sunrise. There was this specific, unspoken moment where we played outside with our neighborhood friends for the absolute last time. None of us realized it at the time, but we were closing a chapter we'd spend the rest of our lives missing. But hey, maybe the whole point of growing up isn't actually having everything perfectly figured out. Maybe we're all just faking it till we make it, and honestly, we are doing a pretty stellar job. Let's talk about how school promised us that everything we learned would be deeply critical for our future survival. I am still waiting for the day the Pythagorean theorem helps me negotiate my monthly Wi-Fi bill no cap. Instead, our adult lives are completely dominated by writing emails that say, "Hope this finds you well." It never finds me well. I am low-key drowning in spreadsheets and corporate jargon. The worst part of this era is realizing that everyone is drifting away into their own busy schedules. "We should hang out soon" has officially become the ultimate lie we tell each other to cope with isolation. We are the generation caught directly between physical nostalgia and a totally digital future. It's a chaotic mess, but at least we are surviving the simulation with a bit of style. Remember when buying a house felt like a standard milestone you just automatically hit in your 20s? Now the housing market is so cooked we're out here calculating if skipping our morning toast will buy us a square foot of dirt. Our entire concept of trends moves at a literal light-speed pace now. It's actually exhausting. You buy a clothing item that's high-key viral on Monday, and by Friday it's officially considered vintage cringe. There's a constant, underlying pressure to always be on, connected, and maximizing our potential. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do for your sanity is just ghost the grid for a clean 24 hours. We are trying to heal our inner child while simultaneously paying bills our inner child never could have imagined. It's a delicate balancing act, but no cap, we are clutched up and making it work regardless. Think about how we used to literally burn custom mixtapes onto CDs just to listen to our favorite tracks. Now we have access to every song ever created in human history, and we still say, I have nothing to listen to. We are low-key the bridge generation that witnessed the absolute death of analog and the birth of full AI automation. We went from cheating on homework using Wikipedia to letting artificial intelligence write our entire existence. Time just hits completely different now. A year used to feel like an absolute eternity when we were 10. Now you blink once, and suddenly an entire season has passed and you're wondering where the days went. It feels like we are constantly playing a game of catch-up with adulthood, and the rules keep changing mid-match. But hey, if everything is a simulation anyway, we might as well keep playing and unlock the next level. Remember when local split-screen multiplayer was the absolute peak of a Friday night with the squad? Now we jump into online lobbies just to get screamed at by an angry 9-year-old who has way better aim than us. It is high-key exhausting how our entire memories are trapped inside a digital cloud storage system. If the servers ever go down permanently, our entire youth basically disappears into thin air, no cap. We were told that getting a degree or working hard would instantly unlock the good life. Instead, we graduated into an economy that feels like it's being run on absolute thoughts and prayers. But despite all the collective trauma, we are low-key the most resilient generation to ever do it. We took the absolute worst hand dealt to us and turned it into top-tier internet culture. Let's be real. Remember the absolute ritual of rewiring a tape or blowing into a game cartridge just to make it function? Now, if a web page takes more than a single literal second to load, we experience a localized midlife crisis. Our dependency on caffeine has officially transitioned from a quirky personality trait to a core survival mechanic. We are low-key running our engines on pure anxiety, iced lattes, and 5 hours of interrupted sleep. There's this weird nostalgia for a time when we weren't constantly contactable by every person we've ever met. Being entirely unreachable used to just mean you were playing outside, not that you were having a mental health era. We are trying to navigate a world built by a generation that had completely different economic rules. It's completely cooked, no cap, but at least we're making the simulation look entertaining. Remember when the absolute peak of your morning was finding a cheap plastic toy hidden inside a cereal box? Now the only thing we find waiting for us in the morning are unexpected subscription renewals we forgot to cancel 6 months ago. It is high-key exhausting how everyone online is constantly trying to sell you a course on how to become a millionaire by age 12. Like, bro, I am just trying to afford a basic carton of eggs. Please stop asking me about my passive income strategy. We are the first generation to have our entire awkward middle school phases permanently archived on the internet. You can't even reinvent yourself because your old digital footprint is constantly lurking in the shadows, waiting to humble you. We are moving through a timeline that has absolutely zero blueprint or instruction manual for us to follow. But honestly, we are adapting, we are surviving, and no cap, we are clutching this entire young adult era. Remember when your absolute biggest responsibility was keeping a pixelated digital pet alive on a keychain? Now we're in our 20s buying real houseplants for aesthetic vibes, just to watch them dry up if we breathe on them wrong. It is low-key wild how our brains have developed to multitask 50 things at once without actually finishing a single one. You open your phone to check the weather, get distracted by an app, and lock it again 3 seconds later, completely clueless. Dating and relationships in this era have officially become an absolute psychological thriller. No cap. We went from having playground crushes to swiping through people like we are choosing an item on a fast food menu. We are trying to build an entire future while the ground underneath us feels like it's shifting every single day. But look at us go, we're still here, still posting through the chaos, and absolutely dominating the simulation. Remember when you could just look up a simple cheat code to instantly unlock every single skin and level in a game? Now, real life feels like a giant pay-to-win mobile game where every basic feature requires a premium Battle Pass subscription. It is high-key wild how our generation has collectively normalized talking about our mental health like it's just casual weather talk. We'll literally sit down for lunch and be like, yeah, my anxiety is hitting a new high score today, pass the fries. We grew up being told we were the gifted kids, just because we read a few books faster than everyone else in third grade. Now that early praise has officially evolved into a chronic inability to relax without feeling like an absolute failure. We are navigating a hyper-connected world using a human brain that was originally designed to just pick berries in a forest. It's a total design flaw, no cap, but we are absolutely clutching the gameplay anyway. Remember when downloading a single song took an entire night and you prayed it didn't give your computer a virus? Now we have 5G internet everywhere, but we still lose our minds if a 10-second clip takes more than 2 blinks to load. It is low-key a psychological hazard, realizing that years like 2016 were a whole decade ago. Like, in our minds, we are still teenagers, but our birth years are starting to make us look like ancient historical artifacts. We entered the job market just to find out that entry level now means you need a master's degree and a decade of experience. They want us to have the wisdom of a wizard at 22, while paying us in exposure and office snacks. We are the generation that mastered the art of hiding absolute existential dread behind 5 layers of irony. The world might be completely cooked, no cap, but our collective coping mechanisms are unmatched. Remember when memorizing your best friend's home phone number was an absolute prerequisite for a social life? Now, if our phone actually rings instead of receiving a text, we assume someone is either dying or trying to sell us car insurance. It is high-key wild how we can't even watch a 2-minute video anymore without a split screen playing mobile gameplay underneath. Our dopamine receptors are so completely fried, we need constant, triple-layered stimulation just to feel baseline awake. We grew up playing games like The Sims where buying a massive 3-story mansion took like 2 hours of gameplay. Then we stepped into the real world and realized a studio apartment costs more than our entire net worth. We are stuck in this constant loop of wanting to grow up, but instantly regretting it the second the bills drop. But no cap, we are navigating this hyperspeed timeline with the absolute best humor possible. Remember the absolute peak weekend ritual of walking down the aisles of a rental store to find the perfect movie? Now we have infinite algorithms predicting our every desire, and we still spend an hour just staring at the home screen. It low-key keeps me up at night realizing that people born in the late 2000s are fully functioning adults now. Like, when did we become the older generation responsible for looking at the younger kids and saying, back in my day? Nobody warned us that the hardest part of being a young adult is the sheer, never-ending mountain of laundry. You finish one load, you feel accomplished, and then you turn around just to find 10 more shirts have manifested out of nowhere. We are trying to figure out our entire identities, while the world is moving at a casual light-speed pace. It's a total circus, no cap, but at least we are running the main stage with top-tier vibes. Remember when saving a video game meant buying a literal physical memory card that only held like 8 megabytes? Now a single patch update for a modern game takes up more storage space than our entire childhood computers ever possessed. It is high-key wild how our metabolisms suddenly decided to completely clock out the moment we hit 20. We went from eating an entire box of pizza at midnight with 0 consequences to getting heartburn from drinking a glass of water too fast. Texting etiquette in this era has officially evolved into a full-scale psychological mind game. If you reply too fast, you look desperate. If you reply too slow, you're ghosting. There is absolutely no way to win. No cap. We are the generation tasked with maintaining a social life, a career, and our sanity on a hyper-accelerated timeline. It's completely unhinged. But we are absolutely clutching the survival mechanics, one day at a time. Remember when the absolute peak of gossip was staying up late talking on a landline phone until your parents yelled at you? Now we have 20 different group chats on 5 different apps, and we are low-key too overwhelmed to reply to a single one. It is high-key wild how our definition of a good night out has completely flipped upside down. We went from begging our parents to let us stay out past dark to actively celebrating when plans get canceled so we can stay in bed. Nobody prepared us for the sheer quantity of random subscriptions that quietly siphon money from our accounts. You look at your bank account and realize you're paying $40 a month for streaming services you haven't opened since last year. We are navigating an economy that feels like it was built on a totally different planet than the one we grew up on. It's an absolute circus, no cap. But at least our collective brain rot makes the ride incredibly entertaining. Remember when the absolute peak of computer class was taking the trackball out of the mouse just to roll it across the desk? Now we're on the verge of working entire corporate jobs inside a virtual reality headset while sitting alone in an empty room. It is low-key terrifying how fast our attention spans drop when we try to read a physical book. We can't even get through a single page without our hands automatically reaching for our phones to refresh a timeline. No cap. There's a specific brand of grief in watching the childhood places we loved turn into corporate parking lots. The arcade, the local park, the corner store, everything is getting replaced by generic, gray apartment blocks. We are the generation caught directly between physical memories and a completely virtual existence. It's a wild simulation to live in, but honestly, we are playing the game on maximum difficulty and winning. Remember when installing a simple computer software meant inserting 4 separate floppy disks or a glossy CD-ROM? Now we don't even own our software. We're out here paying a monthly rent just to access our own text documents. No cap. It is high-key wild how quickly our physical bodies start making crackling sounds once we pass 22. You sleep in the wrong position for a single literal microsecond, and suddenly your neck is locked up for a business week. There's a constant underlying noise in our lives because we are always a single notification away from global chaos. It's impossible to just exist in peace when your pocket device is constantly screaming about the end of the world. We are trying to preserve our basic humanity while being actively pushed into a fully automated digital ecosystem. It's a completely cooked timeline, but at least we have the best internet culture to carry us through. Remember when we used to take photos on disposable cameras and had to wait an entire week just to see if they were blurry? Now we take 50 identical selfies in a row, run them through 3 separate apps, and still end up deleting all of them. No cap. It is high-key exhausting how our work hours have slowly bled into our entire personal lives. We went from leaving our jobs at the office to answering urgent corporate messages at 11 p.m. while lying under our blankets. There is this weird feeling that the world we were prepared for as kids simply ceased to exist by the time we grew up. We followed the basic instructions perfectly, but the map we were handed belongs to a completely different timeline. We have mastered the absolute art of using dark humor to cope with things that would literally break older generations. The simulation is running on pure chaos right now, but honestly, we are clutched up and keeping the vibes immaculate. Remember when road trips meant your parents arguing over a giant physical paper map while trying to navigate highway exits? Now we have satellites tracking our exact footsteps, and we still manage to take a wrong turn because the GPS voice sounded slightly passive-aggressive. It is low-key terrifying how a basic trip to the grocery store for 3 items now costs a casual fortune. We went from buying a full cart of snacks with a $20 bill to checking our bank account balance before buying premium cheese. There's a specific kind of loneliness in realization that everyone is simply too busy surviving to hang out anymore. Trying to schedule a simple dinner with friends requires a 3-month notice, a professional spreadsheet, and perfect planetary alignment. No cap. We are balancing an absolute circus of real-world pressures while trying to keep our internal child alive. The difficulty setting is set to maximum, but our resilience is high-key unmatched. We keep moving forward. Remember when your biggest absolute flex was showing up to school with a cool lunchbox and a juice box? Now, our biggest daily flex is bringing a meal-prepped lunch to the corporate office instead of spending $20 on a single sandwich. It is high-key wild how we are fully expected to just look like we know exactly what we are doing as adults. Like, bro, I am signing a lease and paying taxes, but internally I am still waiting for an actual adult to come into the room and take over. There's a quiet realization that we can never truly go back to the world before everything became hyper-digital. We are the bridge between the old analog piece and this new non-stop internet matrix, and it is low-key heavy to carry, no cap. We didn't choose to grow up in a literal historical transition period, but we are holding the line perfectly. We took a completely broken system and built an absolute empire of comedy and resilience out of it. Remember when the absolute worst thing that could happen to you was losing your game progress because someone tripped over the power cord? Now we're out here realizing that time itself is moving on double speed, and there's no pause button for the real world. No cap. It is high-key beautiful how, despite everything being completely cooked, our generation still finds ways to stick together. We've turned shared trauma, niche internet memes, and collective burnout into a literal community that can survive absolutely anything. So yeah, the nostalgic era of blockbusters, dial-up internet, and zero responsibilities is officially behind us. But the future we are building right now? It's completely ours to rewrite, one absolute chaotic day at a time. If you survived this entire simulation with your sanity intact, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and keep the vibes immaculate. We are clutching this entire era, no cap. GG's only, and I'll see you in the next timeline.